In this article by Travis, you'll see that the focus is on exploring information literacy skills. In particular, the author is interested in finding out how students learn about information literacy in the college environment and how important these skills are in the place of work. So they surveyed actually alumni or graduates of college to find out how often they're using the information literacy skills and where did they learn those skills. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to engage in the article and the research via a prediction process. So you'll see here there are 4 questions for you to think about, such as the first one is, what percentage of college graduates reported using information literacy or research skills in their current position at least once a month? Then you'll want to go ahead and take a look at these other questions before you dive into the article itself. Once you do that, then you're going to read the article, again emphasizing looking for key points, and that's really what we're going to do today, is we're just going to walk through the article together. Once you're finished with that, then you'll want to go back and you want to think about the research in a more deep way, critically evaluating and thinking about the content and why it matters. So you'll see here some questions that can help you get started with that process, as well as some questions that can also help you think about how could I further my knowledge and build my information literacy skills even more on this topic. So let's go ahead and dive into the research article itself. You'll notice this one is set up a little differently than some of the others. The introduction kind of sets the stage here with providing you with some background about some of the information literacy standards that have been provided, and then shifts into the purpose of the study, which is often following a literature review, but in this case they put the purpose right up front and center. So if you take a look at this paragraph here, you'll see why the author actually conducted this study. They wanted to examine factors that might contribute to either the continued and sustained use of information literacy skills beyond the college experience, and what competencies the students really identified as essential to their work. So what skills are they still using beyond college, and what do they really need in the world of work? Now you'll see that the author has spent some time looking at the previous literature. So what you'll see in this section is kind of a summary of different research studies that have explored information literacy. So you can see there's quite a bit of research that's already been done on this topic. And then it'll also talk a little bit about why this particular study is needed. In addition, you'll see that the models of information literacy instruction are also provided. So in addition to looking at what we already know about why information literacy is important, you'll also see here some information about how information literacy instruction is provided to students. So a few different models for that. Okay. So now you'll see at the end of this section, we have a more specific focus on what the actual research questions are. So due to there being a lot of different kinds of programs, basically the author is expecting that students' use of information literacy skills in the workplace might vary based on, the method that the information literacy skills were taught or integrated into the curriculum. So what they did was they compared graduates from campuses that had either formal information literacy requirements or those that did not. And here are the primary questions that they wanted to answer. So the first one is, does having an information literacy requirement at a campus affect the research skills of the graduate? So they want to get a better handle on whether this is an essential part of a curriculum or not, and if so, in what way. The second research question really focuses on, do they attribute, and when I say they, I mean the alumni or graduates, attribute their information literacy skills to the library, or did they learn information literacy skills in another way? So they can better understand how did they learn. And then finally, the last research question really focuses in on more in terms of what are the current skills that they need and that they use on a regular basis in the workplace. So that's kind of, hopefully giving you a good sense of what the study is all about. So now the next section is going to be the background and the methodology. So you can see, again, they're outlining the purpose very clearly. And you can see also in this section that they had created an instrument, and the instrument had 5 different sections. So this is the kind of information that they're gathering from their alumni. So you can see that that is in this section as well. Now, usually you'll find a little bit more detail about the who participated in the method section, but for some reason this particular researcher decided to put some of that information in this section called demographics under results. And what that means is that they've kind of given you a little bit of information about the survey that was distributed. So you can see it was distributed a couple of times. It was distributed to those in the California State University system, but then also open to anyone who attended a four-year institution in the United States. So here you can see the number of surveys that were collected. 62 were collected from the California State University system, but only 54 were usable. So sometimes when people fill out surveys, they don't fill out some of the essential questions, and then you can't use those in your results. And the same thing happened with the non-California system survey results as well. They collected 71, but only 44 were usable. Okay, so now you can see this provides you with a little bit more information about who participated, and it was pretty heavy in terms of students who had graduate degrees because 51% of them had obtained a master's degree and 1% obtained a PhD degree. So we're talking about a little over half having graduate degrees. Okay, so you can imagine that the professional experiences of those folks might be different than some of the folks who had achieved a bachelor's degree as the end goal. All right, so if we take a look here, you'll also see a little bit of information they provide you in terms of percentage of male and females, things of that nature. And again, this is useful because it helps you understand the generalizability of the research findings. Now, this particular author has really done a nice job at organizing the results of the study into their research questions. So they go back to the research question, and if you're reading a research study that does not do that, you want to kind of do that yourself because it really helps you organize the key findings into what the primary purpose of the study was. So in this study, the first question really had to do was, does an information literacy requirement make a difference? Does that seem to make a difference? And when you look here, you'll see, first of all, they kind of answer, well, how many of the participants actually had this requirement? And so they provide you with data about that. And there were some folks who didn't actually recall whether or not they had that, but others were able to do that. And if they did have that requirement, it seemed like most of them, 85%, did that through an actual course. So now when they looked at comparing questions to research, they found that there were actually no major differences between information literacy skills. So it says right here, the students who attended college without the information literacy requirement were actually more confident in their skills both before and after college. So although there was no significant difference, and that sentence before kind of says that there was no major difference, they did see that it was kind of surprising that those without the information literacy had higher rates of information literacy skills. However, it was not just after, it was also before. Let's take a look at the data. So if you'll notice, it refers us to figure 2 and 3. So figure 2 was before you took any coursework. What kind of skill set did you have in this area? And you'll see that the very good was 10% for those who didn't have that requirement versus only 3%. And this in the post part, which is in figure 3, it also was higher. Now, the reason that they said that there was no major differences is that these must not be statistically significant differences. So these are not glaring, kind of huge variations. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the next part of the question. So if we scroll down here, you're going to see that that the researchers also wanted to look a little bit more about the kinds of skills that they were using. And you can see here that the criteria, one of the primary skills information literacy training or instruction really focuses on is being able to evaluate whether or not it's a good source of information. And here in figure 5, they were asking them, so when you're searching, what seems to impact your search? And you can see that there were a variety of things. So if they were familiar with the URL, it seemed pretty similar here, but a little bit higher with the folks who didn't require the information literacy component. And, this just kind of gives you a sense of how folks are looking for information. All right, so if we scroll down, I want to shift to gears. You can find some more detailed information about the, how information is being used. But now let's take a look at the second question, which is really asking, how do alumni view the information literacy skill development? So did this happen through a course or in a different way? Okay, so let's take a look at these results. You can see there were a variety. Students obviously had some requirements, but in addition, many of them also used the help desk or email or instant messaging. But I think the most interesting finding here is that when you ask students here, if you look at figure 7, what do you feel contributed most? Writing research papers and figuring out for myself. So when you look at actual library instruction, that was much lower, and a credit course offered by the library is actually 0 in this particular study. So students are really reporting developing these skills through actual tasks that they need to do that are being assigned by their faculty members. So that's kind of the basic finding here, but you want to take a deeper dive to look more closely at the literature findings. The last question has to do with how much do information literacy skills learned impact you in the world of work? Now, here are a couple of different things that you'll discover. First of all, here's some data on how often they're using it. So approximately 1/3 are saying they need to use these skills every day. About 1/3 are saying every week. 19% are saying monthly, and only 10% are saying they never need to use the skills. So the researcher wanted to find out, well, what kind of information do you need when you say information literacy? And you'll notice here that, news information is very important, but empirical research, which is what you're focusing on in this class, is also the second highest. So this is a very important skill set that you'll need not just in college, but also beyond. And then finally, you'll see that there's the discussion section, which kind of takes these results and tries to make sense of them, puts them in the context of other research findings. So you'll see here that they'll reference other studies that, kind of speak to the same topic and talk a little bit about how this particular study adds some value. Finally, you'll see that the research author is going to talk about limitations. We don't want to take any research study as if it's the be-all to end-all. Every study is going to have some limitations. In particular, one of the limitations that they talked about here was the sample size. It wasn't huge. So, and who was distributed to, and so they tried to do all of this, but they realized that they didn't get as many results as they would have liked. In addition, they'll talk to you about some ideas about future research. So if you were going to want to do a study in this topic, this is the author's recommendation of some ideas. So for instance, comparing knowledge management professions with less information intensive professions. So taking a more deeper dive at looking at different types of careers and what information literacy skills might really be important or valuable. And then of course the very last section is always the reference section, and I strongly encourage students all the time to go back to read some of these original articles that they referenced in their study so you can get a stronger handle on the content that they were discussing. So hopefully this helps you get a better handle on this article, and I encourage you to go and do that deeper dive of the reading and then go back and follow the critical thinking and building information literacy skills components. All right, good luck with it.